We are now into session 3, and I'm delighted to introduce the presentation from the Diocese of Swansea and Brecon. So we're just about to have Bishop John from Swansea and Brecon to start us off, but just to make it clear that there is no vote in this session. This is a session of appreciative inquiry for us to learn, be inspired, support and steal with pride from our colleagues across the province. So thank you, Bishop John, over to you.
Thanks, Chair. President Chair, John Lomas, Bishop Swansea and Brecon, ex officio member. When I was asked if our diocese could do a presentation, we were asked if we could do a warts and all presentation. And I thought that wouldn't be very good, knowing so many of you. So looking around the diocese, yeah, there are problems, and there's no doubt about that. There's problems in every diocese. But what we did find was lots and lots of good news stories and lots of hard work that is going on in Swansea and Brecon at this moment. When you said there was no vote, I was tempted to put a vote in at the beginning of this speech and ask people to vote on whether at this moment in time, looking at what's coming forward over the next 40 minutes or so, you would rather be down in the ladders, the heights and whatever it is conference going on downstairs, and then have the same vote at the end of the presentation and see what comes out. But this is Swansea and Brecon. We've tried to reflect, we can't reflect everything that's going on, but we've tried to reflect rural, urban, education, faith in families, which is a big part of our diocese, and some great work going on there as well. So without further ado, though, I'm going to introduce the video, and the first person to speak on the video is our diocesan secretary, Louise. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Louise Pearson and I'm the Diocesan Secretary for Swansea and Brecon. I'm sorry that I can't be there with you in person today, but I will give you some information about the makeup of Swansea and Brecon Diocese. Our diocese covers a wide geographical area from rural Powys in the north, Brecon at its centre, through the Swansea Valley to urban Swansea and the Gower Peninsula. Our communities are diverse and include deep rural villages, urban town centres and tourist destinations such as Brecon Beacons National Park and the Gower coastline. We share a border with all of the other Welsh dioceses and also the English counties of Shropshire and Herefordshire. Within the diocese there are 184 churches, of which 13 are listed Grade 1, 47 Grade 2 star and 74 Grade 2. We have 14 Church and Wales schools. All of them are primary schools. 6 are voluntary aided and 8 are voluntary controlled. There are 2 archdeaconries led by our 2 archdeacons, the Venerable Alan Jevons for the Brecon Archdeaconry and the Venerable Jonathan Davis for the Gower Archdeaconry. We have 41.5 stipendiary clerics with 21 NSM or House for Duty clerics. There are 14 members of DBF staff, 7 of whom solely provide direct mission and ministry support to our vicars and laity. We've been fortunate to fund most of those roles through grant and trust funds, such as our Education Trust and the Transformation Fund from the RB. The roles include our 4 regional children, youth and family officers, our Director of Education and our Evangelism Officer, all of whom you will hear from in our presentation today.
That ended a little shorter than I was expecting. I had a long way to walk. Paul Shackley, Dean of Brecon, Chair, Your Grace, Bishops, Governing Body. I've been Dean of Brecon now for 7 years, and this is only the second time I've stood here and addressed the Governing Body. Very briefly, the cathedral is set in the National Park of Brecon Beacons. There has been a religious site there, or Christian site, since the 11th century. established by Benedictine monks. It's been a place of pilgrimage for thousands of people, as well as a parish church and a priory, and of course now a cathedral. We aspire in our vision to be faithful, to be inclusive, to worship daily, to be rooted in God's creation, and to love our neighbours. We base this on Ephesians 2, verse 19. You are citizens with the saints and also members of the household of God, built upon the foundation of the apostles and the prophets, with Christ Jesus himself as the cornerstone. When I read the job description for Dean of Brecon, there were 7 challenges. Don't worry, I'm not going through all 7, but just 2. And when I was in the interview, I was asked some questions, but only 5 minutes to go, because the panel kept asking me questions. And in typical Bishop John Davis style, full of stories, he only gave me 5 minutes to ask my 13 questions. And I said, I'd like to draw your attention to challenge number 4. One of the questions was to secure funding for £100,000 for work identified in the QQI. And I said, whoever wrote that doesn't have much of a clue about Brecon Cathedral building, because I did a recce last week and I looked up at the roof and I said, it's more like 3 to 4 million. Big challenge. So I don't know who wrote that, but then he said, well, my boy, I did. Big foot in big mouth. He still gave me the job for some reason. I never understood that. What I found far more interesting, though, was one of the challenges, challenge 6. And I bring this to your attention because it's one of the challenges and conflicts of a dean, but also the team that we work together. And it said, offering inspirational leadership and vision for holding both spiritual and temporal, worship and commercial enterprises within a gospel framework, so each is seen as a legitimate and significant contributor to mission. Holding those in tension takes time and energy and lots of prayer and reflection. But to hold things like governance and finance, buildings, and particularly HR, difficult issues, alongside the prayerful, the worship, and the faithfulness, is indeed a tension. We've already seen that at governing body this morning when talking about the Dignity Charter. Recommendation 8 of the Harris Report states that the distinctive role of each cathedral as a centre of excellence should be fully integrated into the mission and ministry of the diocese. I do have issues with the word excellence, as many of you here might have. But I do think we are in the business of good practice and good stewardship of the resources that we have. I knew that if Brecon Cathedral was also the mother church of the diocese, as some describe, and I have difficulty with that description as well. You might ask why I'm there at all. But the term is often used, mother church of the diocese. But undergirding this ministry is the mother of theology. And the mother of theology is mission. And that should be the heart of what we do here in the cathedral. And so without further ado, here are some snippets from other people, teams that I work with, internal and external to the cathedral, who will hopefully show you the mother of theology, mission of the cathedral.
I'm Jonathan Pilgrim, the assistant organist here at Brecon Cathedral. Choral music and the tradition of choral music have existed here for at least 900 years, dating back to the Gregorian monastic plain chants at what would then have been Brecon Priory. Today, the cathedral choirs sing 4 sung services a week, and there are 3 choirs at Brecon Cathedral. The Cathedral Choir, made up of volunteer adults and children from local primary schools, the Junior Choir, for those younger than our cathedral choristers who still wish to get involved in singing, and the Cathedral Console, our adult voluntary choir. The Cathedral offers a weekly series of lunchtime concerts running from May through to September. And we've not been able to run this series since 2019, but this year we've returned and it's proved more popular than ever. We have a mix of local and international artists ranging from male voice choirs to harpists, guitarists and much more. The music department works well as a team under the Dean's leadership, and as a relatively small music department made up of 3 individuals, we're often reliant on each other to make sure that all tasks are covered. The Cathedral Choir generally tours abroad every 2 or 3 years, most recently having been to the Maltese Islands, but in the past having been as far abroad as the USA, France or Italy. We found it a wonderful incentive for children who are interested in joining the choir who perhaps haven't been abroad before, and for those already in our choir, it galvanises the group.
Hello, I'm the head chorister of Brecon Cathedral. Singing with the choir is great. I've been on tour to Malta and sang with famous people like Catherine Jenkins. We have lots of fun playing in the meadow and making friends. Every year we get together for a barbecue, carol singing and the annual choristers concert.
Hello, my name is Claire Morgan and I'm one of the Children, Youth and Families Officers covering the Diocese of Swansea and Brecon. As a team, we work with local churches and the cathedral to build communities through outreach, work and partnerships. Our work is varied and can include school visits, creating resources, visiting church services, providing training opportunities and representing the diocese at provincial and national level. We're really pleased to be able to offer Cathedral Chaos again this year. During the pandemic we took the event online, but now we're glad that we can gather once again at Brecon Cathedral. Each Cathedral Chaos usually includes a bouncy castle inside the cathedral. This year we've included prayer spaces, craft activities, face paints and much more. Outside, the message bus is on site providing activities for young people in a state-of-the-art double-decker bus complete with games consoles, nail bar and board games. As a team, we're really grateful to the vital volunteers who have joined us today at the diocesan event. Without their dedication, the Children, Youth and Families team would not be able to create the many different opportunities that we hope to provide churches and local communities during these difficult times.
Hi, I'm Julia Blazer from Brecon Story. I'm the project coordinator. Brecon Story is a not-for-profit community-led project. It's run by volunteers, and the Cathedral has been the lead partner for this project, which has helped us gain grant funding, including an Arwine project funding, which is EU led by POWIS. And recently we've had National Lottery Heritage Fund grants for training, which we've actually managed to do online digital training in social media, filmmaking, video making, hurrah, and we create stories. So we have created very recently a story about Borderers Chapel in the cathedral, which is with one of the cathedral volunteers, Rodney Ashwood. And we will also be doing a heritage trail now around town, which will be created with an online virtual tour, so you can actually use your Google map to walk around it, and we'll have a paper map. Again, it's benefiting the community, it's benefiting the cathedral, it's benefiting all the heritage organisations in Brecon. We're so grateful for the cathedral's support with this. This year we also have created a new What's On leaflet for Brecon, again with the support of the Town Council, with POWIS, with all our partners. We work with them, both museums, the cathedral obviously, and all the arts and heritage organisations. It really wouldn't have been possible to do this without the cathedral's support, and the Dean has just been so great as our chair on the steering group. We meet twice a year and he keeps us really on point, and we always have very, very productive meetings. Anyway, thanks to the cathedral, and hopefully we'll have many, many more years of the support. Thank you.
Green Minds is a community ecotherapy service and one of Brecon and District Minds' mental health services, supporting local people with their mental, physical and emotional well-being. Green Minds has partnered with Brecon Cathedral since January 2020 to create a well-being garden for the use of our group members. We offer a weekly session with opportunities to take part in food and flower growing within the safe and supportive space of our communal garden, which has, over the last 2 years, become a hidden sanctuary and a place to come and feel a sense of connection and ease with others.
We're the Hours Cafe and Bookshop at Brecon Cathedral. We've been here now for, is it 3 months? Coming up for 3 months?
Yeah, 3 months.
Which was a huge culture shock change for us. We've had the Hours Cafe Bookshop down in the town on Ship Street for 12 years. And I think what the pandemic did was really force people to rethink how they wanted to live and work. When we heard that Pilgrims, formerly Pilgrims, had come up for rent, we came and had a look.
Yeah, and it's probably the only place we would have ever moved to because it's such a gorgeous environment and the space.
You can talk about serendipity, you can talk about faith, and for us it feels like we're part of a really supportive, warm and welcoming family that really has the community and the people of Brecon at its heart. And I think we have always been about much more than a building, and so when the opportunity came to explore this partnership with the cathedral, the Dean and Chapter and the wider diocese, we jumped at it, didn't we?
Yeah, and it's we've not looked back actually.
We haven't looked back actually. It's we've come through a summer which has been completely different to the previous 2 summers we've had. There's lots of outside space, lots of sky, lots of greenery, really happy, friendly people, and it's been a lovely summer actually, and we're really looking forward to what the future will hold for us.
Alan Jevons, Archdeacon of Brecon. We're going to share with you now a brief overview of the work of Faith and Families, or the Diocesan Board for Social Responsibility. If you want a theological justification for our work, I suppose you'll find it in a sort of combination of the aggressive railings of some of the Old Testament prophets against the injustices of their society, alongside some of the parables of Jesus, the sheep and the goats, the parable of the Good Samaritan, parable of the talents. You'll also find it in Dietrich Bonhoeffer's belief that the church was her true self only when she gave herself away and existed for others. The Children's Society, which excites quite a lot of attention in meetings in a negative way, they celebrated the new millennium by leaving Wales in the year 2000-2001. And they left behind them a lot of projects with families, high and dry. The then Social Responsibility Officer was given £2,000 by the Bishop and asked, put that in your back pocket and see what you can salvage of the Children's Society work. And from these really very small and insignificant beginnings has grown a huge tree of care, love and support for those who suffer poverty and are in need and in increasing need. And the care and the love is its own reward. It doesn't ask for a payback. It's about the kingdom of God. In my day job, I do tend to spend quite a bit of time working with groups that look backwards to a dream that they wish could return. In contrast, I found that Faith and Families constantly looks forwards and responds to the needs of our communities as they are and not as we wish they would be. I spend a lot of time working with groups that centre around their buildings, as if this was the be-all and end-all of their life. In contrast, Faith and Families centres around people. Our strapline is making a difference to our communities. And we are proud that this strapline is just not words, but is evidenced in our actions and in the way that people feel about us. And again, in my day job, I find the prevailing attitude so many times is that something cannot be done. In contrast, the prevailing attitude of Faith and Families is that where there is a need, and there is therefore a vision of what can be done, then it often is done. One of our Christmas carol events, carol services, a couple of years ago, which has in the past been half an hour of organised chaos, I would say, and yet full of life. I have a memory sitting there watching our then Archbishop, Archbishop John, in his purple cassock and silver cross, and in his right hand, his episcopal crozier. And he was sharing a carol sheet with a young mother on his left, who was there sporting tight black sparkly leggings, a equally tight white plunging t-shirt, and lots of tattoos all down her arms, Guns N' Roses blazing down her left arm. And you sat there, you watched these two worlds coming together and sharing a carol, two worlds that really, in some respects, didn't understand each other. And yet that, building bridges, is, I think, the gift of Faith and Families. And introduce our CEO, Cherie.
Thank you. I love Wales. I was born in Swansea and I've never left, and I don't intend to. I want it to be somewhere where everyone thinks it's a great place to grow, live, work, play and raise a family. But it's not. There's a saying that it takes a village to raise a child. I believe that that is true. It takes many people to teach a child all that they should know. Proverbs 22 verse 6 says, "Start children off on the way they should go, and even when they are old, they will not turn from it." But I want you to imagine, and I know it's after lunch and this is the worst slot, but for 60 seconds or more if you dare, just think of the things that I'm about to say. Imagine growing up, never feeling that you belong. In a home where your parents do not have enough money to feed you, keep you warm, clean and clothed properly. 31% of children in Wales were living in relative poverty before the pandemic. So you begin to assume that you are not worthy of the basic human rights. 32.7% of children in Swansea, where our work is centred, are living in deep poverty. That's statistics in July 2022. The consequences then filter through at school, where you stand out because you haven't got enough, where you're tired because it was cold last night. It is estimated that over 45 million families will be in fuel poverty by January 2023. Literally chilled to the bone, an old saying my grandmother used to say that I never believed I would be repeating in 2022. You couldn't sleep because your anxious parents were arguing, and you're hungry because there wasn't enough money to buy for breakfast, and the dinner lady tells you you haven't got money for the items that your mates have chosen and to put them back on the trolley. At least 13,325 Swansea children in 2020 were living in families where they are 4 times more likely to be behind on their bills. Then you're overwhelmed because you just do not fit in. So you get angry and frustrated, which leaves you being told that you've got behaviour issues, that you're challenging and a nuisance, and you don't feel included or valued. In Wales on July the 15th, 2022 alone, 12,970 children, primary school age, were not in school. The same day, 15,797 secondary school children were off. That's 28,767 children in Wales in one day this year that didn't attend school. That's their basic right to an education. Envisage your formative years, your childhood, being one that you were not cherished, where you begin to develop a lack of ability to set a standard of what you really deserve, where trauma is normalised and you live in a constant state of high alert, which will affect your physical and mental health for the rest of your life. With that picture in your head of those children whose brains are growing rapidly, whose personalities are being formed, whose experiences are being locked into their memories forever, move forward into their adulthood, and just think, if we don't do something and find a solution to make a tangible outcome to their lives right now, what will their adulthoods be like? Our world is not starting children off in the way that they should go. More than 1 in 3 children in Wales are currently, right now, living in real deep poverty. They're beginning to believe that trauma, chaos, and living in crisis is the normal way of life. Faith in Families walks alongside these children and families that are living through some of the most challenging circumstances in our communities. Our vision is a diocese where every single child can reach their potential. We want every human being to have the possibility to succeed, accomplish, triumph, and become their best version. Childhood is a golden part of life, and we can never go back. You cannot revisit childhood. The magnitude of the type of experience an individual will have an ongoing influence on their physical and mental health and their future contribution to our world and to Wales and to everything that we all live in. We want Wales to be filled with happy, healthy, curious individuals who are valued and validated. Experiences in childhood help us shape our future and are vital. Charities like ours don't change lives. However, we are lucky and privileged enough to walk alongside people who change their own lives with our support. Building brighter futures together, rooted in our communities, we nurture growth, cultivating fairer opportunities for all, especially during childhood. Our culture is to promote, instill and demonstrate our values, which are of care, compassion, aspiration, respect and empathy for everyone, our teams, our communities, our partners and funders, regardless of their faith, sexuality, race or status. We want everyone to have a good childhood. How wonderful would it be if we lived in a world where these values where we all had these values of care and treated each other with kindness? What an amazing world it would be for us all to live in. So what are we and where did we part? As Alan said, we were established in 1999 when the Children's Society left Wales, at the beginning renting rooms in a small centre with 2 members of staff and a budget of £2,000. Now in 2022, 23 years later, we have 7 projects having a tremendous impact on lives of thousands of people each year with a budget of nearly £1 million. We now have 42 members of staff and have an incredible impact across our diocese. We've had an amazing year, despite the ongoing challenges and changes and restrictions and anxieties and personal and professional dilemmas our staff have lived through the pandemic as well as everybody else. We have 4 centres. Bonnymaen Community Cwtch first opened its doors in 1999. The centre was originally situated in Kevin Hengoed School and is now in the Old Vicarage in Mansell Road in Bonnymaen. Last year, we delivered 101 activities out of school time with 956 attendees. We increased the number of children we worked with by 374%. We also increased our holiday play scheme sessions, delivering 183 sessions and delivered it to 3,720. This meant that we reached over 375 families, but the best statistic is we brought laughter, joy and fun to 587 children. We also delivered 155 toddler sessions with 948 attendees. That was just in Bonnymaen. So then we move on to Clace. Clace Community Centre opened in 2006 in a Gwalia building. This year we facilitated 80 after-school sessions and we were able to provide 181 play scheme sessions, which was an increase of 1,746. We supported 301 families with a team of 3. Coming out of the pandemic, bringing laughter, play, friendship and community connection, we worked with 485 children in that centre alone. So then we move on to Tylos. Originally based in Penplas, it's now in a £1 million development in St Tylos Church. We increased our after-school provision by 41% this year, working with 360 children and 42 families. We delivered 127 sessions, working with 1,904 children in that centre. During the first year of the pandemic, we worked alongside 31 families intensely. That's just St Tylos. So then we go on to our other projects. So that, as well as our 4 centres, we have Tylos Tots Daycare. That last year, we delivered 28,252 hours of childcare. This year, we have delivered 48,260 hours of childcare to 98 children, ensuring their parents had affordable, quality childcare and they were able to access work, training or support. There's more. St John's Wellbeing Centre has been running nearly a year now, 10 years, in the Old Priory School, just opposite the cathedral. That operates a food co-op, gardening clubs, kids cookery clubs, as well as hosting a food bank and a lead clinic, all with 1 member of staff. We also have our Inspiring Futures project, which delivers adult engagement, working with one-to-one with over 200 individuals away from work last year. Out of those 200 individuals, we delivered 460 different certificates, getting them back to work. and a consultation exercise showed that 164 stated that their confidence had increased greatly. We facilitated 13 team around the support groups, referred 55 families to different food supports, and made 526 wellbeing check-ins. And there's more. Children's mental health issues have been increasingly colossal through the pandemic, and our Brighter Futures team is having an increase in demand. During 2021, we were working with 12 primary schools across Swansea. Now we are working with over 30 primary schools across Swansea, delivering one-to-one basic support valuable with play therapy. We use design and play. We have, they've been on suicide prevention. The list of training that our staff has been incredible. We delivered 6,360 hours of intensive research play therapy to 222 children just last year. These are children whose parents have committed suicide, that parents are in prison, that mums and dads have split up, that they've run away, that they're with their grandparents, and they're hiding hamburgers in their pockets to take home because they're hungry. We've also increased our group work by 329% in 5 local primary schools, working with children that were excluded and are about to be delisted. In 2021, we worked with over 2,222 children, 1,632 families, and delivered 873 bespoke play sessions in our 4 centres with just 40 staff. 86% of our parents stated that we helped them enjoy their children. 96% of children said that they were now able to talk about their worries. 92% said that they had learnt ways to control their anger and frustration. And 98% of children stated that they were more confident and they wanted to go back to school. So those are just statistics. There are loads more on our website, and there are tons more stories, heartbreaking stories. Stories of childhoods that are being changed by crisis that children have no chance of changing. So I appreciate your time in listening to me this afternoon after lunch, which is really hard. I hope you heard the reasons why we need your support. And I hope you would like to come along, visit our centres, get to know our teams, get to know our families, see how you can develop that work. Come and work alongside us. Bring the faith into the families. We are touching so many different lives every single solitary day. And we want our children and our families to grow up in communities that are full of compassion, aspiration, respect, and empathy. And I want to live in a world like that, and I think you do, and I want them to too. And I think our work is the gospel in action.
Well, I came to the end of a curacy in the Manchester Diocese. I remember an interview with the then Bishop of Middleton, and I expressed an interest in moving into rural ministry. His response was not positive. You don't want to go to rural ministry, he said. You want to go to Oldham. Well, I didn't want to go to Oldham. I wanted to go into rural ministry. And I took his comment as advice rather than a diktat. And I came down to Hereford. I discovered, in fact, that he was wrong. His diktat was very much aligned with his statement that, and I remember him saying this, if you go into rural ministry, Alan, you'll just gradually go to sleep. Well, maybe he was right on that score, I don't know. But I certainly didn't find rural ministry the way that he pictured it. I discovered clergy who were passionate about their ministry and deeply involved in their communities. I discovered that although church attendance was not great in absolute terms in most communities, in terms of its spread and its influence and its impact, it was really very deep indeed. 10 people breaking bread and sharing faith in a village of 100 or so had a much deeper impact, almost incarnation, than a congregation of 50, say in a population of 10,000 or whatever. I discovered that there was a real palpable relationship between people, land, and the church. There are problems of rural society. Transport, well, we know them well. Transport, withdrawal of village services, rural housing. And there are issues for clergy of being pulled into all sorts of directions, trying to spin lots of plates and not let any of them crash to the ground. But going to sleep? No. We're going to listen now to Andrew Perrin, who is the ministry area leader of the West Radnor ministry area, a large geographical, hugely rural part of our diocese, which is centred on Llandrindod Wells.
Well, hi, my name's the Reverend Andrew Perrin. I am the ministry area leader for West Radnor ministry area in the Diocese of Swansea and Brecon. Our ministry area comprises of about 25 churches. I personally oversee 18 of them. And it covers an area probably 200 square miles. And as you can imagine, in a rural area, that probably comes with some of its issues and some of its problems. Probably the biggest one is distance, covering such a large area, that many churches, with so few clergy. But we are trying to do a lot. One of the biggest things we're trying to do is actually encourage people to travel from church to church, change the mindset of people, really. Trying to get them out of the idea that if there's no service in their church, get them to travel to the church down the road, which often is a good 5 or 6 miles. So that comes again with its issues. Many of the other things we're trying is to engage with the communities, but that in itself comes with difficulties because we are so few. And I won't get away from the idea or away from the fact that we are so few clergy in such a large area. It is a difficulty. But we are trying to meet people's demands, work with them, try and engage with the farming community. But our ministry area just isn't farming community. It's centred around the town of Llandrindod Wells, the Spa town, and also around the town of Rhayader. Both very different towns, to be honest. Rhayader is very much a market town, Llandrindod very much a spa town, which has a great number of retired people living here. Again, that in itself comes with many issues. We try to engage as much as we possibly can. One of the other difficulties we have, just doing a funeral takes a whole day. Our nearest crematoriums are either in Hereford, 40 miles away, or in Aberystwyth, 40 miles away. So it takes quite a bit of time to sort of just do a funeral. Rural ministry is a wonderful thing to be part of, though. I absolutely love it. I'm a Swansea boy originally, but I love being up here. The people, how they value their churches, and how they look after their churches. Today we're sitting in St Michael's Church in Cefn Llys. Now, we're on the inside, but outside there is nothing but fields. But this church is looked after very, very well by a small number of people, and they are supported immensely by the other churches. We come here once a month between Easter and harvest, and it closes for the winter because it becomes quite treacherous to come up here. Rural ministry has a wonderful element to it with regards to some of the people. I can't speak highly enough of my time here. Yes, it's tiring, I won't get away from that. But the people here are wonderful. They get involved, they support the church. We may not see them every Sunday, but they do support the church. I've had many a conversation where people have said, well, if you've got so few congregations, why not close the churches? Well, I disagree with closing churches. I think churches are assets. They are valuable resources. I think the thing we need to do is try and get away from the fact that they can't be used for anything else. We have some of the most wonderful locations in Wales for our churches, not just in this ministry area, but right across Wales. They are in the most glorious locations. Why aren't we using that? We could easily do more with our churches. I know some churches are already doing some sort of camping in the churches, but I think we could do more than that. We have assets. Let's use them. Let's encourage people to look at their buildings differently instead of the building being church. Church actually is the people. The buildings are a resource. And I know I may be upsetting a few people by saying that, but they are a resource. They're for us to worship in. They are not the church. And I do believe we could do a lot more with them. People need to realise that the people of the church, not the buildings. The buildings are an asset. Let's try and use them. Let's do something different. Be bold. And that's what I'm trying to do here. Get people to look at their buildings differently. How can we work with each other? Take the skills and the abilities we have within our ministry area. Those who have got business acumen, those who have got building skills, those who have got the ability to work with people and bring them together. We need to work together, because if we don't, then we just as well lock all the doors and go home. Our ministry area is working as hard as we can with very few people at the moment, but hopefully and prayerfully that will change. I think that's what we've got to aim for. We've got to work together, and I think as we go forward with ministry areas, with the plans our Bishop John has, then I think we can do that. It'll take work, but that's what we've got to do as people. And hopefully and prayerfully we'll come together and take our ministry area forward and spread the good news of the gospel and the difference that Christ can make in our lives.
Stephen Bunting, elected Swansea and Brecon. I think we need to have a collection for Andy to have a car. Seems to be walking everywhere with his 200-mile radius. You know, he's not looking bad for 25 either. I had the pleasure of training with Andy, going through selection with him and everything. And I'm speaking at the opposite end of ministry. I'm in an urban area. I'm Vicar of St Thomas in Swansea. It's on the east of the city as you're coming down Fabian Way. It's pretty much everything on the right-hand side, well, on the left-hand side, as you go past the University Bay campus there. That's my main church, St Thomas. And when I became vicar there 8.5 years ago, I had 3 church buildings and 3 congregations, all not really viable. And we consolidated the 3 of them into one, and which was a very painful experience, but necessary. And the plan for us was to retreat to Advanced, retreat from our 3 buildings, which were taking up so much energy and effort, into one, so that we could build, consolidate, and then go back out to plant other churches. We decided to go all in with our plans. And the vision was for a building that would transform the lives of a community and a city. We believe that the most important thing for anybody to do is to know that Jesus loves them and go into a relationship with Jesus. And what was very obvious to us is that there was lots of things in the way of people knowing about Jesus, whether that was a cultural gap, whether that was a material need that needed to be met first. So we decided to transform our building from a standard pewed parish church into a community hub. We raised £1.4 million, largely from secular funding, to transform the church, to create a second floor worship space and a lower ground floor building that could host our community work. It now hosts our food bank, which feeds over 200 people a week at the moment. Yesterday we fed 48 families in one day. This morning, as the Archbishop was speaking, in the first hour 16 families took food parcels and they were queuing around the corner. Every day we collect surplus food from supermarkets and come and distribute that through our church porch. There's our food bank. We also set up Baby Basics charity, which provides everything a mum needs for the first 3 months of the baby's life. The food bank began because somebody knocked on the vicarage door asking for food. Baby Basics began because we found out that a baby was sleeping in a dog basket around the corner, and we weren't prepared for that to happen in our parish. We now provide free breakfasts every day of the school holidays. We don't call it free breakfast, we say come for breakfast with board games, because we don't want people to feel like they are on the receiving end of aid. We provide opportunities for kids to turn off their gadgets and devices. We put board games out and we give them a free breakfast at the same time. We do a free community meal for older folks who have still not got their confidence back after COVID. They come and have a free meal once a week. We've got showers for the night shelter in the church. We did Christmas Day. We do a Christmas dinner for people who would be on their own. Last year was about 80 people came to it. We gave out 1,000 goodie bags to families and to people in the community, to the nursing home and things like that. We have benefits advisors once a week in the building, local councillors, all to meet the material needs of people in our community and city. We run a big youth group, which is hard work, but is really rewarding. And it's been a great privilege to baptise lots of our young people. We take them down the sea, down to Caswell Bay, and baptise them there. We run the Alpha course in the church and down on the university campus. Each Sunday we bribe people to come by giving them bacon sandwiches and good coffee and tea. When I first started the church, nobody stayed for refreshments, and eventually I convinced people to stay because I bought a kettle, and I found out that they were getting the water to put in the kettle from some dodgy vat at the back of the building. Now we have running water and toilets with toilet roll in them. The business plan for the church is that it has a community cafe and a bar, so we can do wedding receptions. After the wedding, we can do funeral wakes, baptism parties, conferences, and all the revenue from those things go directly to the mission and ministry of the church. And at the moment, we're actively planning to turn the church into a resource church, to see how St Thomas can resource the wider diocese, the wider city through our facilities and experience, and look to plant other churches. We want to transform people's lives by reduction of poverty and introduce them to Jesus. And that's the reality of where we are in our urban ministry. I now want to introduce John Meredith to come up, who's going to speak about education.
Hello, I'm John Meredith. We've all got to take on various roles in our diocese, not many of us. No, it's been a great pleasure to work with John. John's actually on the video in just a moment, but I've been working closely with you, going around the schools, seeing what's going on in the schools. We couldn't leave this presentation without one of the key parts of our church life, which is education. And so now over to our video.
My name is John Meredith. I'm the Diocesan Director of Education for the Diocese of Swansea and Brecon. Education is at the heart of the Diocese's mission and outreach, with the well-being and spiritual development of all of our 14 diocesan schools and community schools at the forefront. Our diocesan schools provide numerous opportunities for their pupils provided by excellent staff, demonstrating their commitment to provide the highest quality of education in all its senses. John 10:10, life in all its fullness. It's not just a narrow focus, but a diverse range of activities that enrich the lives of all the children that attend the schools. Films have been and are being made to showcase our work in schools. Bishop John has visited a number of the diocesan schools, and by the end of the calendar year, would have visited all schools. He has experienced church schools at the heart of their communities, playing a leading role with numerous events taking place. We have an increased emphasis on creativity. This is reflected by all our diocesan schools taking an active role with the Human One Creative Arts Project. I'd like to introduce you to our Creative Arts Project, the Human One. There are 30 paintings painted by the artist Jeremy Thomas. We brought them across the diocese, and they're an asset of Brecon Cathedral, and they're on permanent display when they're not in schools. The idea of the project is for children to look deeper into the Christian stories and what it means. because the painters focus upon a different aspect of the life of Christ. I'd like to introduce the artist Jeremy Thomas. He's the one that painted the wonderful paintings, The Human One. Jeremy, what was your impression? Why did you start painting these?
It originated really with a sermon, sometime about 4 years ago actually, to the day almost, that talked about people using their talents. And I felt at the time that the vicar looked kind of directly at me. It was one of those really annoying sermons, I think, that sort of challenged me to reevaluate the way that I was working. So I kind of took it on board and started to play around with the idea of doing a few little drawings. But as with many things, when you get started, they kind of get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it was the same with this. Kind of, before I knew it, it wasn't just going to be a few drawings. I'd committed myself to doing 30 paintings. It's been 4 years worth of work, and I never expected it to take that long. It doesn't feel like work, if I'm honest, but it's definitely something that's helped me grow spiritually, and something that I'd like to share. And that was always the intention, that we would share that with other people as well, as a mission outreach project.
How do you feel about it being used in schools?
I think it's absolutely fundamental. I mean, when I started this, the whole idea was that we would make sure that it was useful within the community. Otherwise, what's the point in doing it? It becomes something that's sterile or stable, and that's not at all where we wanted to go with it. And I've been lucky with Swansea and Brecon, with yourself and with the Dean here, for all the support I've had here in the cathedral, that you've had the vision, had the confidence in me and the work to actually get it out into the schools to do what it's meant to do, to inspire children with this wonderful story.
Yeah, I only can see this project growing and growing and growing. As children look into it, they come up with some fantastic ideas and different things. Because I know you've been talking to children, the leavers, serving, and they says some bits to you. What stands out in your mind what children have said?
I've been blown away by the response. I mean, we've done lots of sort of online sort of discussions with schools as well, and that's been lovely to see what they've come up with. I've been really impressed by the fact that they've not just responded by copying the images. Again, that would be kind of a sterile. It wouldn't be a very it wouldn't be a very creative way of working with it. I've been impressed by the fact that they've done sculpture, they've done writing, they've done poetry, they've done all sorts of things from it. So you can see that they've managed to not just get ideas from it, but they've kind of immersed themselves within the images as well and understood them more.
Project Touchline has been a success in our schools as pioneering and transforming Christian values educational program through PE, sport and collective worship.
Hi, my name is Chris Andrew and I'm Director of Project Touchline. I'm a lay minister and Archbishop's evangelist. We have been working in the Diocese of Swansea and Brecon for the last 3 years. Really exciting developments, working with schools through a 6-week program which links Christian values through the Christian faith and through sport. We've been playing rugby and the children have loved it. And through the program we start with collective worship, and then we play sport and play rugby through the day in school. But it's all about the value first and the sport second. And the children also understand their faith through the games. They develop their spirituality. And we have started to plant prayer clubs. And these prayer clubs have been really successful. And these prayer clubs continue and carry on and then link into the local churches. And that's our aspiration for the future, to develop these children's spirituality into discipleship. So it's a very exciting time, and I know you're going to watch a program, a video of this work that we've done at Archdeacon Griffith School now. So I hope you enjoy.
I have closed my eyes, I have clenched my fists, I have shut my heart, you have opened it. I have wandered far away, but you were already there with open arms, open arms. I will let love find me, I will let love surprise me, I will let love redesign me, I ever proclaiming your love for us. There's no containing your love won't stop. Your love won't stop. No, you won't stop. Never stop chasing. My heart won't stop. Ever proclaiming your love for us. There's no containing your love won't stop. 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 Your love, time will let love find me. I will let love surprise me. I will let love redesign me. I will let love. I will. Oh, I will let love find me. I will let love surprise me. I will let love redesign me. Oh, and I will let love. I will let love. Oh, and I will let love find me. Oh, I will let love surprise me. I will let love redesign me. And I will let love. I will let love. Oh, I will let love. I will let love. Oh, I will let love. I will let love. I will let love. I will let love find me. I will let love surprise me. I will let love redesign me. I will let love. I will let love.
Project Touchline, living the Christian values and Christian faith through sport.
There's been a number of other initiatives taking place within the schools. I'd like to share a few of them. Child-led collective worship has been introduced to all the schools, with the diocese has supported schools with resources and professional learning. With all these ideas and initiatives taking place, it's important to take time to stop, think and reflect and build upon them. What to the future? A key aspect of my role is to be strategic and identify opportunities for schools which involve working with partners and organisations. St Padam's, Christian Aid, the Bible Society, God and the Big Bang, me, Headstrong Naming, just to name a few. In the diocese, we're looking to grow the number of children in our Church in Wales schools. Consultation is underway to expand the existing schools with new school builds and for community schools to become Church in Wales schools. This academic year, I've identified themes for the schools to focus on. For the autumn term, welcome. The aim is for all diocesan schools to become schools of sanctuary and peace schools, and to build upon the success of Tide Advent. For the spring term, creativity is our focus. To engage further with a creative curriculum focused on further work on the Human One, paintings, and the digital competency framework and RVE. For the summer term, eco and pilgrimage, developing further links between schools and the local churches and Brecon Cathedral.
Evangelism and Mission Officer for the Diocese, Mandy Baton, who's over in Germany at the moment. We've just got a short video, really, of Mandy that's coming up now to speak just a little bit about our mission in evangelism.
Hi, I'm Mandy Baton, the Evangelism and Outreach Enablement Officer for Swansea and Brecon. I'm also sending greetings from Bishop Gregory and Reverend Canon Dr. Ainsley Griffiths, because the three of us have the privilege of representing the Church in Wales at the World Council of Churches General Assembly in Karlsruhe, Germany. Alongside 4,000 Christians from different traditions and denominations worldwide, we're representing 500 million Christians who are reflecting together on how Christ's love moves the world to reconciliation and unity. There are Christians amongst us whose churches are growing exponentially and others, like ours, declining. The talks and discussions are both uplifting and challenging, causing us to realise that together we have a corporate responsibility as Christ's global body to bring healing to humanity, but also to the whole of creation. It feels both scary and exciting. And with that big backdrop, I also have some exciting news to share closer to home about our lovely Swansea and Brecon diocese. I'm sure we all know that the province of the Church in Wales was created in 1920 after the disestablishment of the 4 Welsh dioceses of the Church of England. After the partial disendowment of the Church in Wales, 2 new dioceses were created, one of which was the very lovely and diverse Diocese of Swansea and Brecon, which was established on the 14th of September 1923, which means next year our diocese turns 100. As a diocese, we believe we have much to thank God for, and we want to celebrate our centenary by celebrating God's goodness and faithfulness throughout the previous century, and take the opportunity to show that the Church is a place and a people where there is joy, laughter, and much to celebrate. We want to remind our communities that the Church is present, faithful, steadfast, loving, generous, welcoming and inclusive, that we are good to be around and have something wonderful and life-transforming to share. To make this a year of celebration, we have lots of fabulous ideas for all ages, ranging from bells ringing out across the diocese on our actual birthday to a big festival of celebration and so much more in between. We're planning to hold a competition to create a new logo for the centenary, events at the cathedral, pilgrimages, a centenary garden, a booklet of 100 ideas to bless our communities, plant 100 trees in Asante Mampong, our companion-linked diocese in Ghana, produce a recipe book of food throughout the past century with the help of our lovely Mothers Union. We're hoping to have a centenary song and possibly an anthem produced and a centenary collect written. It's going to be wonderful, and I'm so excited already. We believe that celebration unites and brings joy to people, but we also want to be sensitive to the position many will find themselves in because we recognise life is going to be even harder than usual. So we will bear in mind the trauma that COVID has caused and is still causing, and the current energy and poverty crisis will really have taken hold by next year. So we'll avoid doing things that people need to pay for, but instead we'll make the most of the opportunity to show God's generosity, compassion and kindness through his church. We'd be really grateful if the province could pray for us as we develop our plans, but more importantly, please pray that people will encounter Jesus through us and be drawn to him and his church. We'd also love it if you could join with us and celebrate with us. When we have finalised our events, we'll post the information on our website and social media, so please come and join us where and when you can. We in Swansea and Brecon think God's church is beautiful and believe wherever we live in our incredible province, God and his church are worth celebrating. Hope to see you next year. Auf Wiedersehen.
How she stops herself from saying pet at the end of that, I don't know. We're sort of running over, but we're not running over. But I do apologise, Simon. I just wanted to bookend this and to just finish. It's amazing some of the work we're doing, isn't it? But I can say, as coming as Bishop to Swansea and Brecon, that we're also on our uppers. Look what started from 2,000 quid at the back of the room where Cherry spoke about some of the work that's been done with Faith in Families. But I know the roof is falling off St Taylor's and we've got no money to put the roof back on. Look at what is going on at St Thomas. I know the problems of St Thomas. They've raised £1.4 million and Steve is dying by degrees because of the amount of work he's doing and the fact that we've got nothing that we can tangibly get hold of to feed into that project. I know our education, when I went with John and we saw the Touchline project, I have never seen children of that age put their hands up so quickly to be able to want to pray, extempore prayer, in a church school. I've never seen that before. But the schools are paying for the Touchline project. Now, if your decision that you've got to make is between books and pencils or getting Touchline in, you're going to go for books and pencils. You're going to go for the basics. I've managed to find some money to pay for Touchline project for next year and also to give some money back to the schools that have already paid out for Touchline project because they need that money more than we do. I hope now you can see that if you understand, if you trust us with a little, we can do so much more. One of the problems I've found with our diocese and coming to the diocese is it's just far too complicated. The church structures that we have are too complicated. They tie us into routines that stifle and demotivate. And all of these things and more are coming out of Swansea and Brecon despite all of that. Some of the biggest criticisms I've had from clerics so far is that all of this, the pressure of work, going from 70-odd clerics down to 41.5, all of that pressure has caused them to question whether they're really living out their calling, the life that they felt called to, or not. And for me, that's a crisis in a diocese, when the clerics themselves are wondering whether they're actually living out their calling. So we want to release people to regain the sense of calling to serve the church, and not just clerics, but our lay people as well. And we want to allow them to be even more creative, to give them a voice in the diocesan organisation. We want to look at what structure will be best for us. There's a man in the turn of the last century who was crossing the border, the Iran-Afghanistan border, with an imam. And he was a missionary and also an explorer. And the imam asked him, it's a true story, the imam asked him, he said, what is it to be a Christian? And he said, well, to be a Christian, he said, you need 4 things. He said, to be a Christian is to go on a journey. And to go on that journey, you need bread for nourishment. You also need water for refreshment. You need a book to guide you. And you need the opportunity to serve. And that's what it is to be a Christian. Because Jesus says, I am the bread of life. Jesus is a water that refreshes us, not just for today, but for tomorrow and forever. He's our Alpha and our Omega and everything in between. Jesus is the Word, who was there at the beginning and will be there with us at the end and beyond. and the Great Commission, pushing us out into the world that we read of in Matthew, is a fourth element to what it means to be a Christian. So my question as a bishop is, why have we made it so flipping complicated? We're hoping to reduce our structure so much so that we remain committed to what we're already doing, but so that we can also commit to even more. That's our hope. That's our prayer. Reducing down to the right sort of structure isn't our vision. We haven't even begun our vision now. We don't even know what our vision is truly yet. We see things up the road, but they're blurs and images in the mist. What we're doing at the moment is packing our bags. We're getting everything that we need into the bag and everything that we don't need out of the bag. That's our mission. And I think for me, that's simply my mission as a bishop there, is to enable people to pack the bags so that we can travel well. So we have food for nourishment, water for refreshment, the word of God to guide us, and the opportunity to serve. I'm so grateful for what you said earlier on today, Archbishop, and the announcement that we have decided to be the kind of church that invests in the world in which we live. I recognise that world that Cherry talks about. That's where I began, and it stays with you for the whole of your life, that kind of life. My job opportunity was to be taken to Walls Meat Factory. And I was expected, along with all my mates, to fill in the slots in the factory, in Walls Meat Factory. And that was to be my life. And that is still the life for some of my mates. But I decided to run away to sea instead, so there we go. But the work that Cherry's doing with Faith in Families transforms you. Transforms lives, transforms children's lives. Touchline Project transforms our children's lives. The work that Steve and others are doing in Swansea, it's not just Steve, there's lots of other things going on as well, transforms lives. So I would plead with you to allow us to serve even more and to resource us and to trust us that the little that we were given, we've done much with and can do even more if you give us more. Thank you.
Well, Bishop John and the whole diocese, we are extremely grateful to you for that. I did promise you inspiration, learning, things to steal with pride. We do have 10 minutes left. Bishop John, would you be happy for people to ask you questions to gain even more from the wisdom that we have heard today?
Absolutely
not. Thank you. Would anybody like to share any response to what they've heard? There was much there that was wonderful, challenging, inspiring. Would anybody like to do anything other than contemplate and just let it grow in the heart? Please do come to the rostrum.
Elected cleric from Monmouth Diocese. I'd just like to say a big thank you for sharing that. And I want to say that the work on faith in families is so important. I can't reiterate enough, because actually I heard my childhood described here today. We grew up with nothing. When the cupboards were empty, they were empty. And there was never any possibility of improving our lot, because my father was disabled, and if my mother earned more than £15 a week, it was taken from my father's benefit. And what that does to you as a child is to make you feel that you don't fit, that you don't belong, that you're never good enough. and that also stays into adulthood. And so even standing here as a priest, and I'm 55 years old, there's still that little niggle. So that kind of work just can change the life and the psyche of children from such a young age onwards, and hopefully no other child will grow up feeling like I have, like I don't quite belong. But I also say thank you to the church for nabbing me in and keeping me in. So, but thank you. I think that was really inspirational. It's wonderful work to be doing.
Thank you so much, Naomi.
Naomi Starkey, elected cleric, Diocese of Bangor. I wanted to respond a bit to the vicar or the ministry area leader from, was it West Radnor? And what he was saying about buildings was so inspirational, because the tendency, the rhetoric, as the narrative has often been, buildings are the millstone round our necks, you know, and how can we get rid of our buildings? And to hear him just completely changing that round and saying what an asset they are, if only we were sort of using them right. But also something that resonated with something in a conversation I had with someone else about, especially in remote areas, how the church buildings can be the only community facility left in a community. And is there some role there in more remote, less populated areas for the church to actually reboot community life, where so often it's been, and then the church goes, you know, along with the school and the shop and everything else. I suppose my concern in hearing his story was, why has he got such a big ministry area? Why isn't it divided into two? But there you are, Bishop, that's just my thought.
We're hoping to get rid of 65 parishes and benefices, 4 deaneries, and 6-7 ministry areas that we've got already. We're hoping to completely restructure and to make everything a lot simpler. I should have mentioned Andrew as well. I mean, the work that goes on in those areas is remarkable. And Lance and 1 or 2 others that are here today will confirm that. I was in Abbey Come Here. It took me ages to find a church, but I was there anyway. Eventually I got there. Abbey Come Here on Sunday morning. There was around 100 or maybe just over 100, I think Lance wasn't there, people there, along with Andrew. It's his area, that had gathered together in one church, which is for most of us in the middle of nowhere. And there was a tremendous atmosphere. There's an awful lot going on. I think as a bishop, I would love to learn more about how we've never really worked out how to thrive in rural areas since I've been in the church in Wales. But I don't think those buildings are millstones around our necks. The ones I would identify as millstones around our necks are probably the large Victorian warehouses we've got in and around, you know, Swansea and other places that we need to address. Those churches have been there for centuries and they almost look after themselves. But I agree entirely with what you're saying. Andrew's got too much on his plate. We haven't got enough clerics. We can't afford any more clerics. And stalwarts like Andrew and Lance and others are just the backbone of, and Andrew, Alan will confirm this, I think, in the north, are the backbone of the north of the diocese. They're wonderful people.
Whilst anybody else is thinking, if I could take the liberty of saying that was one hell of a sermon that stimulated that art project. I don't know if anybody's going to own up to that. But I just felt how wonderful it was to see the variety of, you know, sport and exercise, art, practical help, eco gardens, and how belonging takes so many forms to each of us. If I may just make my question for Bishop John after this question, insofar as without our priests, we are gardeners, social workers, shopkeepers. What wisdom would you offer us to take away, Bishop John, about how we can make sure that we keep those things in creative tension as we take these ideas and I hope use them in our home places? But please, after you. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter Lewis, elected in Llandaff, but from Penclawdd. So I was born and brought up in Swansea and Brecon Diocese. I just want to kind of note, as a person who came to faith there, how really refreshing and lovely it is to see that energy and that expression of hope, because I'm not sure it was there in such fullness of way back in the 70s and 80s when I was growing up. But my question really is about investing in paying people to do work, which will probably come up tomorrow in our discussion about the evangelism money. A lot of people who we heard of there had paid roles, and there's that question of, do they operate as like a catalyst for parishioners to get involved? Because where we are in Llandaff, we're investing a lot in training and encouraging volunteers and the laity to come into place. But it's that question I'd like to ask you about, what is the role of paid staff to actually come and run things like a debt centre, or run things? So my grandson, who was born earlier in the year, is 2 streets away from St. Thomas's Church. And if their family are wanting to come and be part of things and to grow into things, do we need to have people paid to encourage the local congregations to do it? Or do we need to train the local congregation themselves to do it? And if you had a lot of more money, what model would you think you would use? Does that make sense? Thank you.
Thank you, John. You've got 3 minutes to finish this off, so thank you.
I think people should be paid for work that they do, if they need paying for work that they do. I know that when I went around Faith in Families, there were many people that had been volunteers there for a long, long time. Cherry was probably desperate to pay some of them, and they probably needed paying as well. But it was the goodness of their hearts and the wanting to serve that has caused them to come forward in the first instance. I suppose I'm not a great fan of peripatetic workers. I think everybody needs to be based within a family unit of some kind. And sometimes I think in the church in Wales we pay people for roles that are too big for them, and it's like, you know, jam on bread. It's so thin that it has no effect. I would say that if we were to be given money, if it was something like the Evangelism Fund bid or whatever, we're looking at mission hubs now, we would want to set teams into places, and it would be a mixture of those who were paid and those who wanted to volunteer. There are some people, but not everybody, who can afford to volunteer and who work almost full-time for us in the church in Wales. But I would say that it's just got to be a mixture, and we've got to feel our way forward and pray our way forward. In my last diocese, one of the wonderful things about it was when we formed mission areas properly. Yes, we did have people in paid roles, but the rise in the professionalism and the desire to serve by the laity, by just ordinary people in the church, was amazing, and I think it transformed our diocese. So there's no easy answer to it. I mean, I would just say, when it comes to paying people to do work, if we can, if they need it, then we should, and if we need them in a particular role, then we should, and if we can't, then we just do what we do at the moment. We're doing the best we can. But it's been faithful to what's given to us and how we dish that out. Without priests, well, I think we're all priests in the order of Melchizedek. Apparently that's in the Bible somewhere. But I think we all, in a sense, have a priestly ministry. I would love to see more stipendiary clerics in Swansea and Brecon. That's not just so the clerics that we have at the moment, we have an easier life. It's just that I feel we can do more. There is a place, and there always will be a place, I think, for stipendiary clerics within the church in Wales. But we're there to instigate and to grow and to nurture people's lives in Christ. And I think we've missed a trick by going down to about half the number that we've got now in our particular diocese. But looking at the figures this morning, I know it's not just our diocese, it was every diocese. But yeah, you give them to us and we'll use them.
Thank you. Bishop John and the whole Diocese of Swansea and Brecon, we are intensely grateful to you for this wonderful example of growing God's kingdom and paying our tribute to the Lord Jesus Christ. Thank you very much.